Episode 4. Let's go back to October 2022, into the beginnings of November, before the murders. Bryan Kohberger, who's accused of the murders, is having issues with his professor as a TA at Wazoo, and in between this happening, he is stopped for a traffic stop. This is caught on bodycam. This is a timeline that I created specifically for this video, and this is prior to the murders. October 3rd, 2022, Bryan meets with the professor to discuss the incident and his professional behavior. And then in between all this happening on October 14th, the officer for the traffic stop is pulling over Bryan and is telling him what he did. Incorrectly, he is pulled over in his 2015 white Elantra. On October 21st, Professor Snyder emails Bryan Kohberger about how he's failed to meet expectations as a TA. And then November 2nd to the 3rd, Director Willits and Snyder meet with Bryan Kohberger to discuss an improvement plan, and Bryan agrees to this plan. Feel free to pause and read this in detail if you'd like, but we're going to go one by one. So Bryan meets with the professor to discuss the incident on October 3rd. This is his profile from Washington State University when it existed. Then you move into the October 14th incident where he's stopped for a traffic stop and the officer discusses what he did incorrectly, and then he's in his 2015 white Elantra at this time. Then on October 21st, Bryan sent an email by Professor Snyder about the ways he failed to meet his expectations as a TA that semester. This is a snapshot of the website from Wazoo that shows about what graduate student assistantships are, and most of the graduates use this as funding for their degree. Then Director Willits and Snyder meet with Bryan. This letter was particularly found in his apartment during his search warrant, and it was discussing the improvement plan that they had agreed to. It states September 23rd, you had an altercation with the faculty you support as a TA, John Snyder. I met with you on October 3rd to discuss the norms of professional behavior. The letter reads, on October 21st, Snyder emailed you about the ways you failed to meet the expectations of the TA this semester. As a result, on November 2nd, we met with you to discuss the improvement plan, which you agreed to. And then let's go into this objectively. If we don't know anything about this case or Bryan, what do you see? He seems pretty calm to me, definitely wants to argue his case, but don't we all when we are stopped and don't want a ticket? Let's also pay attention to the officer and how she acts as well.
Hello, I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so
I was behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Yep.
Do you have the registration and insurance?
Yes. Let me just get this for you out.
You what?
I'm just going to get this out for you.
Okay.
So would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck like in the intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done been? Just
Okay, so Bryan is not from this area. He comes from a rural part of Pennsylvania. He's doing the right thing, trying to understand what he did wrong, that maybe where he's from, he doesn't encounter, nor is it illegal there.
You're not supposed to block an intersection like that in Washington, so just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, and then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go, because a lot of people do what you just did, right? Is like you're sitting in the intersection waiting, and then turns, and then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion with speeding because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh.
Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who like made a right. They didn't have their their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Yeah, so I would just advise
Yeah.
just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up.
I don't know if there's a best
I
thing to do in that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody,
Yeah.
or you're going to run a red light. So, or you're going to be sitting in an intersection.
Yeah.
There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
so even if
interesting.
you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines, like there's one white line and there's another one in front. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of place your vehicle.
From my observation, he's not aggressive, but he does seem like a type A personality and wants to be right and needs to showcase this in some way. It may be a control thing. That being said, he did just move to the area, so he probably isn't aware, and he hadn't even changed his license plates yet.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to...
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah.
We have to remember he's a criminology major. He is getting his master's in it. So he's probably also asking because this is what he wants to be involved with for a living and likes to learn about it.
1 second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Expires November 22nd, or 2022. Okay.
Okay, you just heard the officer confirm that Bryan's plates expire November 2022. We know that the license plates on the car driving around the home is missing one of the plates, but Pennsylvania, you're only required to have one plate, which is why the prosecution is trying to say it was his vehicle.
And
Yeah, one of those is actually...
yeah, okay, that looks good. I'll hand that back to you. I'm just gonna go check your info. I'll try to find that RCW, the law for you, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't know about you guys, and that's okay if you have a differing opinion. This guy seemed polite and simply inquisitive thus far. Let's see what we uncover about him going forward, but for this interaction, alarm bells were not going off for me personally. What do you think?
Sierra 331, code 4 driver.
Go ahead.
Last of Kohberger, King, Ocean, Henry, Boy, Edward, Robert, George, Edward, Robert. First of Bryan, Boy, Robert, Young, Adam, Nora. Middle C, Charles, date of birth 112194, Mount Washington.
You think these traffic officers would know these by the back of their hands, especially when they are saying people are guilty of violations, but they themselves don't know the exact code of the violation, but deal with this every day. Doesn't make sense. How can you say someone's guilty of something you yourself can't even remember the code of? By the way, I'm a huge supporter of our first responders. These are just ideas that I'm putting out there as I watch. I also personally do not agree with corruption, which is what I feel is going on in this case. Whether Bryan did it or not, or did it alone, that is yet to be seen, but we will find out the truth.
Go ahead.
Genesis license through Washington 11/2027. The vehicle is valid on a 2005 Hyundai Sonata.
Copy. It should be an Elantra. Precinct.
Copy, it might be. It actually says the dam, so that's my bad.
Sierra 334 stopping.
334.
King 568889 through Idaho. Will be stadium and Q parking lot.
1638.
Okay, so I found it. So I don't know what in Pennsylvania where you go to find laws, but in Washington it's called the Revised Code of Washington. So I'll try to turn my brightness up, but it's just called an RCW. So it's RCW 46.61.202. So it's no driver shall enter an intersection unless there is significant space on the other side of the intersection. To accommodate the vehicle he is operating without obstructing the passage of other vehicles, despite any traffic control signal indications to proceed. So you had a green light, so you're thinking you can go, but you're blocking the intersection. Yeah. So that's, if you're ever curious in any laws in Washington, just Revised Code of Washington. So I'm not writing a ticket or anything like that today. I understand you're from Pennsylvania, but...
That was nice of her to give a warning and to explain where he can find this information. And don't we all wish we could have that kind of leniency?
In the future, don't proceed through the intersection. You can't get stopped for that alone, unless you can clearly just clear it right away.
Okay.
So
then basically, I understand.
You're just supposed to wait behind the white line. Drivers do it all the time, but...
It never even occurred to me that was actually something wrong, but well, except for the fact that I was blocking the crosswalk, which is what I went through.
And states vary from laws, like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area, so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh.
Unless I visit an area where there are crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying.
He is being considerate, thinking how him asking questions may have come across, which is good of him to do in this case, in case he came across a negative way to her.
No, not at all. Like, I understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like, I only know it because this is what I do, but if you're ever curious on any more laws, just RCW, and they can be hard to read because it's in like legal language, but hope that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah, have a good day.
Definitely, you too.
Thanks.
Doesn't that voice not sound the same as the officer that responded to Bryan Kohberger's call? Listen, coincidence? I think not. Let's listen to them side by side.
Have you had any alcohol tonight? Have you had any drugs, any narcotics, prescription medicine?
Nope.
Should you be taking any prescription medicine? No? Do you feel okay?
Yeah.
Besides,
I was just starting to sweat a little bit and started to eat.
Where do you live at?
Out in Pullman.
In Pullman?
Yeah, 1455. Northeast Grandview.
What apartments are those?
The Pimlico.
Pimlico? What unit number, if you remember?
Not remember.
Pimlico, though?
Yeah.
How long have you lived there? Hello,
Officer.
I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually?
What are the odds the same officer pulls over Bryan and has an interaction with Bryan Kohberger? Both are somehow mentioned throughout investigations into this case. Episode 5 coming soon. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And you've been listening to Blahgergirl.